Should I? Yeah, okay. Hey everybody, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Leah Catherine and this is Leah Sees Movies. Here with my first rear view. Not quite a review, but a look back at movies I have not seen yet. And we are starting with Carrie, 1976, not the remake. Fathom Events is doing a theatrical re-release, so I saw it in theaters for my very first time, and I think that was a great choice. To be clear, I do not really like horror. I'm a giant baby. I admit that. I'm proud of that. I do not like jump scares. I do not like to be scared. But, you know, I feel like neglecting horror as an entire genre is very limiting, so I'm trying to baby step my way into the field. So I'm starting with some of the classics, and this seemed like a good place to start, especially going into October, and it was really not quite what I expected. Apologies if you think this is going to be like a really nuanced and well-paced, well-thought-out review. It's not. It's really just, I just saw a movie and I'm going to talk about it, warning you now. And my train of thought has 72 stops and they go like this. I saw The Shining last year, also in theaters, and I also had that same experience of these classic horror movies where it's so much about that buildup of suspense and the kind of emotional horror, not so much the scary stuff. And with this movie, I was just kind of taken aback by how sympathetic Carrie was. Like, I knew the plot, obviously. It was hard to avoid that over, 20 years of pop culture. But even knowing the plot, I was so, I kind of fell in love with Carrie, and I felt so bad for her. I spent the whole movie just like, she doesn't deserve it. And Sissy Spacek, I hope I'm saying her name right, I just think she did an incredible performance as Carrie, and especially, that scene where Carrie's telling her mom, "No, Mom, I'm gonna go to the prom." I was just like, you go, girl. I was really rooting for her. And then the stupid other girls. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I'm just gonna start out with the beginning of the movie. Don't know if all that nudity was necessary, but it was the 70s, so I guess some things you just have to accept will be. But it's really interesting because with that opening scene, with Carrie getting her period for the first time as a high school senior, and the way she freaked out, I was for a second thinking oh, Carrie has some kind of developmental issue, because she didn't go oh God, I'm bleeding, someone help. It was screaming, panic, touching, I understand her fear, but I definitely understand why no one would want anyone touching you with your uterine blood. Please keep that to yourself. However, obviously, all the other girls were horrible and cruel to her, but her panic was so much that I was like, this doesn't even seem kind of like a rational adult reaction. And so I thought that was kind of going to be the setup, but then later she's intuitive, she's kind, she's trying so hard to fit in, ignore the fact that she wants to fit in because obviously her mother makes that impossible. She's smart. She knew this was a trick going in. And so I think the beginning reaction, I guess, only in hindsight just made you go, wow, she really thought she was going to die. Her mother gave her nothing. So really the villain here is poor sex ed. That is the main problem in this movie, is that there was no school-wide sex ed to say, hey, this is what happens when your uterus does a thing. Chaos. Piper Laurie, man, as her Mother Gothel wishes she had the range. I think it's interesting that she kind of dressed like a witch. Because when I first saw her in that scene when she's going to the neighbor's house, I wasn't thinking, oh, she's here to spread the word of the Lord. I was just like, oh, she seems quirky and out there in a... I guess being fully covered up is associated with most kinds of religious modesty, but I don't know, the all black, the gloves, I was just like, ooh, she does spells. I was a little disappointed, to be completely honest. I feel like, I'm aware of this back and forth about how good is Shelley Duvall's performance in The Shining, because I know that when I first saw it, I was just like, what is she doing? This is cartoonish. But then when you got more into the horror aspect, her fear and everything matched the setting better than it did at the beginning of the movie, where she was just a regular housewife, but she didn't respond to things in a normal way. Granted, she was being tortured by the director, so I see how that could impact her acting choices. But I was kind of expecting something similarly kitschy when I went into this movie. And instead, I got these really wholesome and heart-rending performances of people who felt human, which I think is something The Shining definitely does not. It feels cartoonish. Yeah. Everything's big, everything's over the top. And with Carrie, expecting something very similar, I was pleasantly surprised by how down to earth it felt. In a weird way, I just kind of was like, this is post-pubescent Matilda. Like, Matilda, it's the same story. It's like if she went dark side, if instead of just kind of torturing Mrs. Trunchbull with the ghost of Mrs. Honey's brother, Mrs. Honey's dad, if she had just been like, screw it, everybody gonna die. My parents are gonna die, Trunchbull's gonna die, and I would have been like, yeah. So I think the fact that I was seeing it from this lens of like, my childhood hero, but if she decided to go apeshit, and I was like, yeah. The creepiest Jesus I have ever seen. I'm skipping ahead, but like the Jesus who's maybe Satan. Is that supposed to be the thing? Is Jesus supposed to be like a false idol and they were actually secretly worshiping Satan? Because those glowing eyes were horrifying. Someone who's read the books, tell me if there's some more backstory, not just to the creepy Jesus, but to the end of the movie where they like fall into a sinkhole and presumably go to hell. Because it made me so mad, because I think if the story was just Carrie murders everyone at the prom, I'm on her side. And the fact that the coach, who was kind of a conundrum for me, because she smacked the hell out of Carrie in the first scene when she was freaking out. She like damn near punches Chris, who sucks, so she kind of deserved it. But like, teachers shouldn't be slapping their students, so that was not awesome. But then the support and like the emotional, like the way she had Carrie's back, and not just saying like, hey, I'm so sorry they treated you that way. But then she goes to the principal and she's like, honestly, I wanted to slap her too. I get it. She's annoying. I kept bouncing back between like she's a wonderful teacher and she's an awful teacher. The fact that she actually did punish those girls for the way they treated Carrie, I was like, hell yeah, again. The fact when Carrie gets asked to the prom by Tommy and then she immediately is like, yeah, girl, do it. You know, you're so pretty, curl your hair, you look great. I was like, why are you encouraging her? You know this isn't gonna go well. And then literally immediate cut to, what are you guys planning? I don't know what you're doing. Stop it. I don't want any kind of plans, schemes, malicious intent, none of that. Carrie doesn't deserve it. So the fact that she dies at the end made me really upset. Because bad teacher or no, she really had Carrie's back and she didn't deserve to go via, I don't know, flying pan thing. What was interesting to me about that is because we saw how much she supported Carrie and how much she had Carrie's back, when you get to that final scene where Carrie hears her mother's voice saying they're all gonna laugh at you, and you get that crazy like effects zoom ins on everyone laughing, and then they show the coach laughing, and I was like, would she be laughing? Like, that was the point where you kind of went, is this actually what's happening, or is this mostly happening in Carrie's head? Her own kind of psychological break at this betrayal, at this humiliation. Is she just imagining everyone is laughing at her? I'm sure some people were laughing because, you know, teenagers are dicks. But presumably, at least some of the adults in the room, definitely the coach, definitely Sue, were just like, this is awful, this is terrible. Also, the whole movie, I didn't trust Sue, but she ended up being a good and genuinely great person. Well, not that great because she participated in bullying Carrie in the first minute, but she did try to redeem herself. She gave up her date because apparently you can't go to the prom without a date, which would have made my prom very depressing if we'd kept to that rule. So the fact that Sue ended up being a genuinely good person, kind of one of the only ones in the movie, and then she ends up being saved because the coach is really rash and violent and just threw her out without actually listening, because she could have stopped it. If the coach had taken 1 second to be like, wait, why are you here? It's like, hey, there's something going on. There's people hiding under the stage. It's just like there was so many moments where they could have stopped it from happening. Yeah. I'm really just rambling, but like, I really enjoyed this in a way I did not expect to, and I think it's also because it wasn't that scary. At the point where she finally snaps and starts like, she's just like hosing people down, that one douchey English teacher gets electrocuted, I didn't feel bad for him because he laughed at a student who doesn't talk because she liked a poem. That is not how you mold America's children, actually. So screw that guy. They didn't want to let a girl boss win, and that's why she went to hell, because at the end of the day, they were like, JK, the evil power her period gave her is sent by the devil, which I think is the theme of this movie. So it's not great, but it was fun. I will say it is very funny that there's been so much discourse recently about Dear Evan Hansen and how Ben Platt looks about 42 years old in that movie. And then you watch movies from the 70s, like people have been like, well, what about Grease? But having just watched this movie, all of the students look the exact same age as the teachers. Everyone is 45. John Travolta is probably the youngest he's ever looked in a movie. And I mean, God bless his bone structure, because the acting was Oh, I'm surprised they gave him lines, to be completely honest, because when I would have heard those delivered, I would have been like, perhaps we just let him drive and have hair. That's really what he brings to this movie. Also, he's apparently the kind of person who will exsanguinate a pig for one oral sex. Does not question it after that. He did get blown up, though. Also, Chris is just like the most maniacal high school villain I've ever seen. She does something terrible. She is punished. She's like, what? I can't be punished. Instead of going after the coach for punishing her, she wants to punish Carrie for merely existing. And I guess that's kind of the point, is that she's a two-dimensional monster. But I just wanted a little bit more, and I'm not sure if the book version of her or if Stephen King in the books gives these high schoolers a bit more depth. Because in the movie, you kind of have like the good one, the good girl, the good guy, crazy mom, everyone else sucks, a complicated coach character, and then really Carrie's right. Carrie's right to murder all of them because they all are terrible. The only one who gets out of it is the one who has shed no blood, so to speak. Actually, pretty literally. If you have shed no pig or human blood, you get to survive the movie. And I would have just liked a bit more motivation to go that extreme to I'm going to bleed out a pig and put it on the stage and cover it up because she didn't want to do 10 more minutes of jump squats. Like, you gotta give me something, cause that is a level of mean girl that I can't just swallow on concept. Someone explain why Carrie goes to hell when she's the hero of the story. Miss Collins, that's her name. I keep calling her the coach, but same thing. This movie would have been just as good with a bit less objectification of what are supposed to be teenagers but are clearly 30-year-old women, but still, that would have been delightful. I don't actually need to see her have a near-orgasmic moment showering with bar soap. Somehow that was the worst part. Bar soap on your face? Painful. Dry. I know she was itchy for the rest of the day. Terrible. The real horror story was poor sex ed and poor skincare, actually. Murdering everyone at the prom? Justified. Oh, he did Scarface? Ah, look at that. I assume there will be titties in that as well. Yeah, I was really surprisingly into this movie. I think if I had one real complaint, it would probably just be the pacing and the lack of depth to a lot of the characters. They're pretty archetypal, and then we just move on from there. But other than that, I really liked it. I'd probably watch it again and next Halloween and keep that tradition going. All right, thank you so much for watching my first Rearview. I'll try to keep these going as I watch new things, especially as we go into October when I'm going to try to watch more horror adjacent things. And if you enjoy my stream of consciousness, awesome. If you don't, that's fair. If you liked this video, like, subscribe, comment, especially if you have read Carrie or know more about it. I would love to hear it. And I'd appreciate more information because I have a lot of questions still. There's a lot of things left unexplored that I think hopefully a book would cover. Yeah, so do that. Thanks for watching. Bye! I forgot what she calls her boobs, dirty pillows. That made me laugh. It was great.